to another PH video blog. Now today I'm going to become one of those insufferable YouTube supercar bloggers and talk you around my new McLaren that I've just picked up here at McLaren Manchester. I'm not really, I haven't paid for it, I've got to give it back in a few months' time, but let's live the dream while we're here. So what have I got? I've got a 570GT. I was able to spec it from scratch, so that's very exciting. I have chosen all the bits on this car myself, so I'm going to talk you around what I paid for, or what I got McLaren to pay for. Let's have a look here. So, being a GT, I thought I'd go for a slightly more restrained colour, slightly more mature colour. That kind of fits in with the GT image, I think. The main options you can do on the outside, they've got these grey palladium bits which are all over the car. I'll show you a bit more of that in a bit. I could have chosen those in carbon fibre if I'd wanted to. That would have added about 30 or 40 grand to the price. I was very restrained, I held back on that. I did spend some money on the wheels, which are in a stealth finish. Let me tell you how much they cost. It's in here. So my 5-spoke wheel, £3,490 for the super lightweight wheel, and then another £1,110 for the stealth finish. Splashed out a bit there, but what the hell. I didn't go for the ceramic brakes, I went for steel brakes. I thought that was quite an interesting choice because all the other McLarens I've ever driven have had ceramic brakes. So I think maybe for a daily driver kind of car, slightly better pedal feel maybe, we'll see. I hope to get the car on a track at some point, so we'll see if there's a performance trade-off there. But I think, as I say, kind of fitting in with the GT image, that probably works best. Now then, the interior is where I started to splash out. So let me talk you around what I spent my money on in there. Right, so as I was saying, most of my money went on the interior of this car, given that this is where I'm going to be spending most of my time, and as much as I like the idea of living the dream of being a supercar owner and razzing it down to Monaco or going around racetracks all day long, actually I'm going to be using this as my everyday car. So, although it's a supercar, although it's a McLaren and lightweight and all the rest of it, I want it to be comfortable and usable. So, to that end, I have added the GT upgrade pack. Now then, that gets me the Bowers & Wilkins Hi-Fi, which I'm really looking forward to testing out. Again, much as I like the idea of a sports exhaust and all that kind of thing, the reality is I really like my music, and I'm going to be spending a lot of time sitting in the car going up and down the M1 when a sports exhaust is less use than a nice hi-fi. So I'm looking forward to enjoying that. Also part of the GT upgrade pack are an alarm, cameras, things like that. So just stuff that you need for day-to-day living. A nose lift as well. That's one thing I've noticed on McLarens in the past. They are quite vulnerable to low curbs and speed bumps and things like that. So the nose lift is really important. All that adds just over £5,000 to the price. I think, to be honest, if you're going to buy one of these cars, you'd be daft not to have that. I also added a carbon fibre interior trim package, which cost me £2,500. That gets me some carbon trim around the tunnel here in the middle and on the dashboard around the sat-nav screen. I know it's only cosmetic, but a McLaren is carbon fibre. I think I'd like to remind myself of that on occasion, even if it is, as I say, just for trimmings. I've got some more on the sills here. Under there is real carbon. This is dressing, but, you know, it just looks nice, so why not? The saddle leather interior I think goes really well with the paint. I want a bit of a contrast there. If the outside is perhaps a little bit understated, the interior is perhaps more opulent, which I think keeps with the whole GT ethos. Now, having said all that, I'm really rather looking forward to going for a drive in it. Okay, so I've talked you through the extras on this car, the fixtures and fittings, the carbon fripperies and all that kind of thing, but can I just be a bit excited because this is my McLaren? Well, it is for the next few months anyway, so driving it back from the dealership, picking it up, going through all the handover process, that's been really, really good fun. But now I'm out here on one of my favourite moorland roads on a proper shakedown, my first real go with the car to actually find out what it's going to be like to live with and drive over the coming months. Am I excited? Of course I am. Right, so here we are. We're on the same road, in fact, that I drove the 570S not that long ago. So it's quite an interesting comparison to make. And from a driving perspective, there are differences between the GT and the S. They're subtle, but they are there. They mainly concern things like NVH, so a bit more sound deadening, slightly softer suspension, slightly quieter exhaust, slightly slower steering as well, which is lower geared, which straight away I am noticing. I have to say, one of the things I've loved about the S was how sharp it was on the nose, and I can feel that this GT is slightly more relaxed in its demeanour. There is a difference there. It's still lovely, it's still hydraulically assisted, there's still great feel and feedback. In fact, I think people coming from some of the main rivals like the 911 Turbo and the R8 and things like that will still be quite shocked at how much feedback there is coming back through the steering wheel. The weighting is quite heavy as well for a modern car, and I think, you know, if you've grown up getting used to some of the more isolated modern supercars, you're going to be in for a bit of a surprise there, but a nice one, I think. And it's, although this is a GT McLaren, it's still, I think, significantly sharper and more poised than a lot of the immediate competition. And I think that's important, because a lot of the people coming to a car like the 570GT, particularly the GT over the S, are probably coming from cars like the 911 Turbo, things like that. So that will be their frame of reference. And I think if you've made the decision to go into a McLaren, you're probably looking for something a little bit more sharp, a little bit more sporty and involved. And I think first impressions are the GT delivers on that, while having a bit more of the kind of grown-up appeal that you might want out of a car like this. So the steering stands out from other similar cars you might choose, but the brakes are interesting as well. Now, the ceramics I've driven in other McLarens have been quite grabby, but not too bad by the standards of these things. Now, these are steel brakes, as I've said. They're a bit different from the norm in terms of what McLaren offers, but they do take quite a shove on the pedal as well. Now, that's quite a McLaren thing, to try and make their brakes feel like unservoed brakes, which is, first time you go for them, you'll have a bit of a kind of, oh, blimey, I think I needed a bit more than that. But you get used to it, and once you learn to modulate them, they're really, really nice, actually. So there will be a slight sacrifice in unsprung weight there compared with the ceramics, which will possibly impact on the ride comfort a bit, but then the ride is pretty good overall, so I don't think it's much to worry about. And day to day, I think particularly in town driving, that slightly more progressive pedal feel will, I think, help be a little bit more relaxing, you know, on the kind of the commuting side of things. They certainly don't seem to be lacking in power when you really need them either. Well, the ride is slightly softer as well, not that you'd particularly notice. Again, of the kind of cars this GT is up against, it is definitely a sharper and more exciting car to drive. I do love this panoramic roof. You really do feel like you're in a cockpit of a jet fighter. Now, I've not driven the 720S yet, but I have sat in one, and that has a very similar atmosphere. Visibility is a big McLaren thing. They really understand that being able to see out of the car makes a huge difference to your confidence, being able to place it accurately on the road, knowing where you are, knowing where the extremities are. It's not a small car, but it does feel like one. And this kind of airiness you get from the panoramic roof, I think, is really nice. It's definitely one of the kind of GT things that sets it apart from the S, and already I really, really like that. What else can I tell you? Well, the engine's interesting as well. Again, if you're coming from an R8 or a 911 Turbo, this 3.8 litre V8 twin turbo that's been at the heart of the McLaren range from the very start, it definitely feels more turbocharged. Obviously the R8 is naturally aspirated, that's got that fantastic throttle response and noise. It's a really standout feature in that car. The 911 Turbo has got those variable vane turbochargers that have fantastic low end response. It's got an almost diesel-like power, you know, you're getting peak torque from 1700 revs. The McLaren feels very different. You need some revs on it, and it kind of whooshes when the boost cuts in. It feels very much more forced induction in those cars. It's a characteristic. I happen to quite like it. Whether it's on trend with the others, I don't know. It'll be one of those things, if you're coming from the competitor product, you will notice, but by God, there is no lack of speed. It's a really, really fast car, and an exciting one as well because of the way it delivers that power. So I like that. I like the steering feel. I like the excitement of the engine. I like the fact that even though this is the grown-up GT version, it's still an involving and serious car to drive. It's good fun on this moorland road. It'll be interesting to see whether that translates to the kind of boring everyday stuff, schlepping up and down the M1. Really what I want out of this car is something that can entertain me on a drive like this, but also get me from A to B in the minimum of fuss and bother, where I can enjoy things like that lovely Bowers & Wilkins stereo and the comfort features and things like that. That to me is what McLaren is setting out to do with this GT. That's what makes it, although I like the S, and that's probably the car I would gravitate to more naturally, that's kind of why I was interested to try a GT, because it's something a bit different from McLaren. It's a new type of car for them, and if I'd chosen an S, you'd just had 6 months of me going, it's brilliant, I love it. Whereas with the GT, I'm not quite sure, so that will be interesting to explore as we go on. So first impressions of my GT are certainly, as you can tell, pretty favourable. It's, you know, so far my driving has been a boring schlep around the M60, having picked it up from the McLaren dealership in Knutsford. That wasn't particularly inspiring, and now here I am on my favourite moorland bluffs across the top of Saddleworth, taking the scenic route home. And I think that really, that's the kind of drive that sums up the GT. It should be able to do that boring commute, and then with the press of this active button on the dash here, be able to transform into something a lot more exciting and dynamic. If McLaren can pull that off and make this a car that covers all those bases, from kind of extreme supercar to daily waftmobile, then I'll be really, really impressed. The next few months are going to be very, very interesting, I think. I'm going to look forward to putting it against some of those competitors that I've mentioned previously. There's the Honda NSX is another one I'd like to compare it against, because that's a new player on the market, and one that I think goes after McLaren's kind of daily usable kind of thing, but with a bit more of an exotic feel. That'll be very interesting to compare. But yes, it's going to be a really, really exciting few months. I'm really, really pleased with the car that I spec'd. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little video blog. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel and check by PistonHeads.com for more.